Hello again, everyone. Edwin Lerner back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about the moon transiting the third house in a natal chart. Now, on average, the moon will transit your house or a house for a relatively short period, approximately 48 to 72 hours in most cases. So, anyway, people, the thing about this is that you might be more of an emotional communicator during this period. You might communicate your thoughts with a lot of sensitivity. Your mind may be a little bit more subjective than average during this period. And the thing about this is you might you might be more sensitive perhaps to what siblings say in their activities in general, if you do have any siblings. This could be a period where maybe your emotions may really dominate your thinking. And if you have, like, say, a water dominant chart, this could even intensify that a little bit, I would say. So the thing about this is just not to overreact during this period, or really become too irrational in your way of thinking. Now, the thing about it is you may be really, at this point, you may be very active and be moving around at kind of frenetic pace, even if your chart is more, it's not a chart which suggests a lot of activity. And say, like, for example, if you have a Taurus rising like me, and you're more sedentary, say, on average, and more stagnant, so to speak, you might be you might be a lot more active in mind and body in this period than you generally are ordinarily. And really, intellectual stimulation, conversation can be emotional needs at this point in time of the transit of the moon in your third house. You may saying you disdain monotony in this period could actually be a vast understatement. You might have difficulty in concentrating on one thing at a time, and your mind might be racing with a plethora of ideas and could be very restless and antsy at this point in time during this transit. And the thing too is to be careful not to be too sensitive to what others say during this time. You might misconstrue an unintentional slight as perhaps something derogatory or criticism or ridicule, when in many cases it may very well not be. So those are some things to look at as far as this transit goes. And really, it might be a time where you really feel this need to verbalize and articulate your emotions more so than average. And short journeys may figure more prominently in your life scheme than ordinarily during this period. And those are some things to look at. You might be showing more of a nurturing attitude and more sensitivity perhaps to people in your neighborhood, your neighbors, and you might be doing things maybe for them and showing and lending, even if it's just an empathetic ear, or you might be just showing more general sympathy toward them, and maybe asking them if they need something, or run to the store, for example. You yourself might be busy doing more tasks and going places in your general neighborhood during this period than you ordinarily are. It could even be something connected with transportation in your general neighborhood, such as a vehicle. If you have one, there might be more activity connected with it, maybe working on it or doing something, even if it's just a paint job on your vehicle. There might be something connected with something connected with your general means of transportation. Like I said, if you have a car or a truck or what have you, there might be more activity connected with that. So those are some things to look at with this transit, and it could indicate this period might be a period too that you might not just have, it might be something where assimilating information and learning maybe something new might be an emotional need or concern at this point in time. You might find it as a strong learning things in general might be a strong emotional outlet for this during this time when you have this moon transiting your third house in your natal chart. And the thing too is about maybe might exercise, you might yourself may be exercising sensitivity when talking to others, but another thing is you might react to things in a more subjective manner than usual during your communications with others. So those are some things to consider during this transit. And also the mother and or women in your life, they might figure more prominently at this point in time as far as perhaps in communication at this point in time. You might be talking a little bit more with them as opposed to ordinarily as far as communicating with them, and maybe these people might come across to you as more loquacious and more talkative than usual. Well, anyway, it's also important to look at the sign that the moon is in during this transit, or I should say the sign that it's in for either all or the majority of the time that it is transiting your third house, as this could flavor the influence a little bit. Let's say, for example, that the moon is in garrulous Gemini during most or all of the period it's transiting your third house. This could show a period where you might really reinforces the talkative energy and loquacious energy here, and it could indicate that you might feel a need to talk about really a variety of subjects during this period as far as emotional needs may go. And really that's really one of the things to look at during if the moon is in Gemini for all or most of the period it's transiting the third house. And another example, let's say that the moon is in Sagittarius for either all or most of that moon's transit in your third house. Well, this could indicate a lot of more exuberant, enthusiastic, emotional communication, perhaps, and really strong feelings of happiness, perhaps, in your communication. And you may talk about, maybe there might be more conversation regarding Sagittarius-like things, such as perhaps something connected with sports or philosophy or religion. So anyway, it's also important to look at the aspects that the transiting moon makes during this period to your natal planets and points in your chart. For example, let's say that the transiting moon was making a square, in conjunct, or opposition, let's say to your natal Neptune. Well, this could indicate that perhaps there might be you might experience maybe from others, even prevarication or deception, perhaps in as far as maybe in the communications at this particular time. So this is something to look at that as far as a possible, let's say, as far as a transit in which could factor into your maybe being even more sensitive in your communications. If you're experiencing, say you experience that for that short period that it makes that transit, it could cause some agitation and maybe even increase maybe more sensitivity in communications. Now, the thing is, let's say for another example, let's say the transit moon makes let's say a sextile or trine aspect to your natal Saturn. Well, this could indicate perhaps that you'll have maybe made good instincts regarding communication with older people that positions of authority, superiors, supervisors, and can show some discipline in this as well. And it's could be a good combination of instinct and also discipline during this time, and it could factor into your communications, given that it is the transiting moon in the third house at this time, in this example making the aspect to your natal Saturn. Well, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for the moon transiting the third house in a natal chart. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be dissertating and talking about the moon transiting the fourth house in a natal chart. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.